My name is Mary, and I turned 24 today. Birthdays are supposed to feel like milestones, but for me, it was just another 12-hour shift at Memorial Hospital. I had promised myself not to expect much from my family anymore, and yet some stubborn piece of me still hoped they'd remember. A simple card, a small happy birthday at breakfast, anything. Instead, I left the house in silence, my footsteps echoing in the hallway as though I were a guest in a hotel, not a daughter in a home. The pediatric ward buzzed with its usual rhythm, crying toddlers, anxious parents, nurses darting from chart to chart. In this chaos, I found comfort, structure, purpose appreciation that rarely existed in the Stokes household. My colleagues had remembered. By noon, Amelia, one of the charge nurses, appeared at the station with a cupcake topped by a single candle. "Make a wish, birthday girl," she whispered, shielding the flame from the air conditioning. Her smile was warm, unforced. I blinked hard, almost embarrassed by the tears pricking my eyes. Thank you, really. These were the little kindnesses that kept me going. A doctor passing by clapped my shoulder. "Dedication like yours, working on your birthday. This place is lucky to have you." Lucky. The word lingered like a balm. My family never used words like that for me. By 2 o'clock, the sting of being forgotten had dulled beneath steady work. I almost convinced myself it didn't matter. Then my phone buzzed. One text from Dad. "We sold your car. Family comes first. Be grateful we let you live here rent-free." I froze, staring at the screen, as though the words might rearrange themselves into something less absurd. My car. The Toyota Corolla I had saved for researched and bought outright with my nursing paychecks. The first real symbol of independence I'd ever earned. Before I could breathe, another text landed. "Oh, and Derek's tuition is due next week. $5, $800. You'll cover first semester. Family helps family." A chill ran through me, leaving my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The fluorescent lights above seemed suddenly harsh, the nurse's station closing in on me. I ducked into the supply closet, heart pounding. I dialed Mom. She picked up on the fourth ring voice, too cheerful. I could hear Derek's laugh in the background, carefree as always. "Mary, I'm busy. Can we make this quick?" "Busy!" My voice cracked. "Mom, Dad just texted me. He said you sold my car. That was mine. The title is in my name." A pause, then her sigh. "Your father handled all that. We needed the money for family expenses. Besides, you live here practically free. Taking the bus won't kill you." I pressed my forehead against the cool metal shelf, trying to steady myself. "That's theft, Mom. You can't just sell something that isn't yours." "Don't be dramatic." Her tone sharpened. "Your father added his name to the title months ago, when he took it in for inspection. You signed the paperwork, remember?" I remembered. The morning he shoved papers at me as I rushed out the door. "Just registration renewal," he'd said. I hadn't questioned it. I hadn't wanted to. And the tuition. My voice was barely a whisper. "That's fair, Mary. We've supported you for years. It's Derek's turn. Family helps family." Her words, reasonable on the surface, cut like glass. Supported me. Since 16, I'd paid rent. I bought groceries. I worked shifts while Derek played video games. And yet in their story, I was the dependent, the lucky one. "I have to go," I said tightly before the fury strangling my chest spilled into words I couldn't take back. The line clicked dead. Almost instantly, Derek's text arrived. "Thanks for covering tuition, sis. Dad says you've got it. You're the best." The entitlement in his message snapped something inside me. For years, I had swallowed every slight, every theft, every reminder that my milestones didn't matter. But this was different. They hadn't just taken money. They had stripped away the one thing that symbolized my freedom. I shoved my phone into my pocket and returned to the ward functioning on autopilot for the next 6 hours. Vitals meds reassuring parents, smiling at kids. On the outside, I was the reliable nurse. Inside, I was a storm tightening into something dangerous. By the time my shift ended, 3 more messages from Dad waited. "We need the tuition money by Friday. Don't make things difficult for your mother. Family obligations come before personal wants. We raised you better." Raised me better. The phrase twisted in my gut. Raised me to sacrifice, to yield, to accept that Derek's needs always outweighed mine. I canceled dinner with my friends, guilt pricking as I typed the message. But I needed my energy for what was coming. The bus ride home stretched 45 minutes each stop, giving me more time to stoke my resolve. The city lights blurred past the window, my reflection staring back at me. I looked calm, but my pulse thudded like war drums. This time I promised myself would be different. When I stepped through the front door, the smell of pot roast hit me Mom's go-to for family occasions. The table was set with the good china. "There she is," Dad called from his recliner, eyes still on the television. "Birthday girl's home. Dinner's almost ready." I set my bag down slowly, scanning the room. Mom appeared from the kitchen, towel in hand, smile too wide. "Let's not start the evening with arguments. Okay, I even made your favorite dessert. Chocolate cake, my birthday cake. As though sugar could sweeten theft." And then Derek bounded down the stairs, grinning. "Hey, tuition fairy." He punched my arm lightly. "Dad says you're covering first semester. Perfect timing, just ordered my laptop." My chest tightened, air sharp and thin. They expected me to sit, eat, nod, and comply, like always. But not tonight. Tonight, something inside me had shifted, something that whispered, "No more." The dining room glowed with forced warmth, candles flickered. The good china gleamed under the chandelier, and the pot roast's heavy aroma clung to the air like a net meant to hold me in place. My mother hovered at the head of the table, placing dishes as though staging a performance for honored guests instead of the fractured family we really were. "Sit down, sweetheart," she urged, her voice coated in artificial cheer. "Let's enjoy dinner before things get tense." Before things get tense. The phrasing caught me. Not if, but when. She already knew this wasn't about celebrating me. This was a setup. Dad finally tore his eyes from the television, his recliner creaking as he stood. His movements were deliberate, like a man entering a negotiation he believed he had already won. "Birthday dinner. Mary, you should be grateful. Not every family goes all out like this." I scanned the table, mashed potatoes, green beans, salad, pot roast, all the markers of a special night. Yet no card, no small gift, not even a candle for me. The birthday dinner wasn't mine. It was theirs, a backdrop for their demands. Derek plopped into the chair across from me, still grinning from his earlier tuition fairy jab. He twirled a fork between his fingers, smugness dripping from every gesture. "Man, this food looks amazing. College life is going to feel empty without Mom's pot roast." I sat slowly, forcing my hands to remain still in my lap. Every muscle wanted to tremble, but I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. For several minutes, small talk filled the air. Weather neighbors, Derek's dorm assignment. Thin veils over the thick tension. My birthday was not mentioned. Not once. The clatter of utensils felt exaggerated, every scrape a reminder of the silence surrounding the real reason we sat here. I chewed, deliberately waiting. Finally it came. Dad set down his fork, cleared his throat, and folded his hands on the table. His knuckles were pale, pressed hard against one another. So about Derek's tuition, he began, his tone casual as though discussing the electric bill. "We'll need that check by Friday. University doesn't wait." The words slid into the space between us like a blade. I set my fork down with equal care. "I'm not paying Derek's tuition." The silence that followed was so absolute I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. Derek blinked, fork suspended midair. "Wait, what?" Mom's smile faltered. "Mary, don't say things you'll regret. This is your brother's future." "No," I said evenly, meeting Dad's eyes. "I won't cover it, and you had no right to sell my car." The facade cracked. Dad's face darkened, his jaw tightening. "Ungrateful doesn't even begin to cover this, after all we've given you, all you've given me." My voice rose before I could stop it. Rent since I was 18. Grocery bills, utility bills, 6 years of contributions while Derek coasted for free. That car was mine. You forged my signature to steal it, and now you expect me to empty my savings for him. Derek's squirmed eyes darting between us. "Dad said you were cool with it. He said you wanted to help me." The fury in my chest turned sharp. Of course he did. That's the story he always tells, that I'm the responsible one, the dependable one. But what he really means is the one he can take from without guilt. Mom pressed her napkin to her lips, her voice trembling on cue. "Why are you attacking us like this? On your birthday. We're trying to have a nice family dinner." "No," I said, my hands flat on the table, now steady despite the adrenaline. "You're trying to disguise theft and manipulation as family obligation." The air tightened heavy with unspoken history. The scholarship they'd stolen. The grandmother's pearls that had mysteriously migrated to Mom's jewelry box. The graduation gift money borrowed for house repairs. Every instance pulsed in my memory like fresh wounds. Dad's fist hit the table with a dull thud, rattling the silverware. "You listen here, young lady. Family comes first. If you can't understand that, maybe you don't belong in this family at all." The old threat. The ultimatum that had kept me compliant for years. Be part of us or be nothing. But this time it landed differently. Instead of fear, a strange calm washed through me. I had already glimpsed life outside their control during my shift, the kindness of friends, the recognition of colleagues. Maybe belonging to this family was no longer worth the cost. I leaned forward, my voice low, almost tender. Then maybe I don't. Derek gawked, the cocky smile wiped clean from his face. You're serious. You're really going to abandon us over money. I turned to him, eyes steady. This isn't about money, Derek. It's about respect, about fairness, about years of sacrifice you never even saw because you were too busy enjoying what I was forced to give up. He opened his mouth, then shut it again, stunned into silence. Mom's tears spilled freely now, streaking her mascara. Why are you doing this to us, to your brother? He deserves a chance. My voice hardened. So did I. The weight of that truth settled like a stone on the table. For once, no one had a response. I stood the chair, scraping the floor. I'm not paying, not 1 cent. And if you ever touch something of mine again, you'll regret it. Dad's eyes blazed, but his mouth twisted into a smile that chilled me. You think you can stand against me? Everything you are, Mary, is because of us. Without this family, you're nothing. The words should have cut. Instead, they rang hollow, echoing against the walls of a belief I no longer shared. I straightened my voice steady. We'll see about that. The pot roast cooled on the table, uneaten. My birthday cake sat untouched in the kitchen. But in that moment, for the first time in 24 years, I felt something close to freedom. The silence after my declaration stretched taut as a wire ready to snap. The ticking clock in the hallway suddenly sounded like a hammer against my skull. My mother's tears pattered softly into her napkin. Derek fiddled with his fork eyes, darting between us, like a boy caught in the wrong room at the wrong time. And my father simply stared at me, eyes dark, jaw clenched, the weight of his control pressing against me like an invisible hand around my throat. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and lethal. You ungrateful little girl. I flinched, not from the insult itself, but from the venom with which he delivered it. He wasn't angry. He was enraged at my refusal to play my role. You live under my roof, he continued, his voice rising with each word. You eat food bought with my money. You owe this family everything in this. He jabbed his finger toward me, the veins in his neck bulging. This is how you repay us. My hands were steady, though my heart thudded against my ribs. I've paid rent since I was 18. $400 a month. Utilities. Groceries. I've covered repairs. Paid more into this house than Derek ever will. Derek bristled, mouth opening in protest, but my father silenced him with a sharp look. Then he turned back to me, face flushed crimson. That's nothing compared to what apartments cost. Nothing compared to what we could have charged. You should be thanking us for the deal we gave you. A bitter laugh escaped me. A deal. Is that what you call it? Bleeding your daughter dry while spoiling your son. Selling my car behind my back, forging my signature. That's not a deal. That's abuse. My mother gasped as though the word itself were obscene. Don't say things like that. We're your parents. We love you. Love doesn't steal, I shot back. Love doesn't erase my birthday. Love doesn't demand my savings because you can't say no to Derek. Her tears flowed harder, and she pressed a trembling hand to her chest. Why are you doing this to us? Why are you tearing this family apart? That was always her refrain. If I resisted, I was the one destroying the family, never the choices that forced me to resist in the first place. I'm not tearing anything apart, I said, voice low but steady. I'm refusing to be your scapegoat anymore. The room quivered with tension, each word a tremor threatening to split the foundation. My father rose to his feet, napkin dropping to the floor. His presence filled the space like a storm cloud, looming oppressive. You have 2 options, Mary. Either you write that check for your brother's tuition by Friday, or you pack your things and get the hell out of my house. Derek's eyes widened. Dad, quiet. My father's roar rattled the glasses on the table. This is between me and her. My pulse quickened, but for once, fear didn't rise to meet it. Instead, clarity bloomed. The choice he offered wasn't a choice at all. It was liberation dressed as punishment. I pushed back my chair and stood mirroring his stance, though my frame was smaller, my voice softer. Then I'll leave. His eyes narrowed. Disbelief flickering across his face. He'd expected me to cave, to beg, to apologize, as I always had. Instead, he was confronted with the possibility that his grip no longer held. You don't mean that, Mom whispered, voice trembling with desperation. Where would you even go? I'll figure it out, I said simply. My father sneered, leaning close enough that I could smell the tang of whiskey on his breath. If you walk out that door without helping this family, you are dead to me. Do you understand dead? You'll regret it for the rest of your life." The words, once powerful, slid off me like rain on glass. He had wielded them too many times. Threats of abandonment, of disownment, always designed to keep me tethered by fear, but fear had lost its hold. I straightened, meeting his glare head on. Then so be it. For a moment, no one moved. My mother's sobs filled the silence, thin and sharp. Derek sat frozen, his fork still clutched in his hand like a useless weapon. My father's face twisted with rage, veins bulging at his temples, his hands curling into fists at his sides. Finally, Derek broke the silence, his voice uncertain. "She's bluffing. She always caves. Remember when you took her graduation money for the deck repairs? She complained for days, but still gave in." His words stung like salt on a wound, but they also confirmed what I already knew. To them, my compliance wasn't love. It was expected. It was guaranteed. "Not this time," I said, my voice like steel. "I'm done." I turned toward the stairs, my body shaking but my resolve solid. My father's voice thundered behind me, echoing through the house. "You'll regret this, Mary. Mark my words. You'll regret this decision for the rest of your life." I paused halfway up, gripping the banister, and glanced back not at him, but at the scene I was leaving behind. My mother collapsed in her chair, her tears soaking her napkin. Derek scowling, his privilege crumbling in real time. My father, a towering figure of rage, powerless for the first time. And then I kept climbing. In my room, I closed the door and leaned against it, heart hammering. The house that had caged me for 24 years seemed suddenly smaller, suffocating. And yet beneath the anxiety coursing through me, something unexpected pulsed relief. I whispered it aloud, as if saying it could make it real. "I'm free." For the first time in my life, I believed it. My room looked the same as it always had. Posters from high school still curled at the edges. Textbooks stacked on the desk, a bulletin board filled with pictures of classmates who had long since scattered. But tonight, the air was different. It carried the weight of finality, like the stillness before a storm. I closed the door softly behind me, leaned against it, and listened. Downstairs, voices buzzed faintly. My father's tone boomed every few minutes, punctuated by my mother's sobs. Derek's laugh, nervous and forced, rose occasionally, like a boy pretending everything was fine. None of them came up the stairs. They thought I'd crack, as I always did. But not tonight. I pulled my suitcase from the closet, the zipper rasping loud in the quiet room. I froze, waiting to see if anyone noticed. Nothing. The television downstairs switched to a sports channel, my father's distraction of choice after an outburst. Clothes first. I folded them methodically. Scrubs jeans, a couple of dresses I rarely wore. Each piece felt like a small decision about what was worth carrying into this next life. My hands moved automatically, but my mind roamed through years of quiet thefts. I remembered the Christmas when Aunt Laura had given me 3 crisp $100 bills. Mom had taken them for safekeeping. They'd never resurfaced. I remembered the deck repair my graduation money redirected with promises of repayment that never came. The way my student loan refund had gone to family expenses. Every memory slotted into place like pieces of a puzzle I'd refused to see until now. I pulled open my desk drawer and found the shoebox I'd hidden years ago. Inside were receipts, rent slips, grocery lists, bank statements. Proof I had carried more than my share. Proof I wasn't the parasite my father liked to call me when I pushed back. I stacked them neatly, slipped them into a folder, and placed it in my suitcase. Evidence, but also armor. At the bottom of my jewelry box, I found the tiny velvet pouch containing my grandmother's earrings, the only piece of her legacy I'd managed to keep hidden when Mom had swept the rest into her collection. I held them a moment, the weight small but grounding, then placed them carefully between layers of clothing. My phone buzzed again. "Amelia," I answered in a whisper. "Mary, are you okay?" My throat tightened at the sound of her concern. "Not really, but I will be. Can I crash at your place tonight?" "Of course, I'll leave the door unlocked. Want me to come get you?" I shook my head, then realized she couldn't see me. "No. I'll call an Uber. Just thank you." "You don't need to thank me," she said gently. "You deserve better than whatever's happening over there." Her words warmed me, even as my stomach churned. After we hung up, I texted Casey too, asking about the apartment complex she'd mentioned. Within minutes, she replied, 1 bedroom, still available. Manager's flexible. "You want me to set up a meeting tomorrow?" I typed back quickly, "Yes, please." The clock ticked past midnight. The house settled into its familiar creaks. Dad's snores rumbling through the walls. Derek's video game noises finally silenced. I moved faster now, sliding documents into a folder, tucking my nursing certificates into a protective sleeve. My stethoscope, my grandmother's pearls, my passport, all small tokens of a life I refused to let them erase. By 2 a.m, the suitcase bulged. A backpack sat beside it, filled with essentials. Everything else, the furniture, the trophies, the framed certificates, would stay. My childhood bedroom, once my sanctuary, had become a storage unit for memories I no longer wanted to carry. I took one last look around. The faded poster of Florence Nightingale above my desk. The photo of my high school graduation where my father had accepted the envelope of gift money with a pat on my back. The bookshelf stacked with nursing textbooks, edges frayed from late-night study sessions. None of it mattered anymore. What mattered was freedom. I crouched and slid a thick envelope onto the kitchen counter before leaving my room, a dossier I had spent the last hour assembling. 27 pages of records. Receipts, statements, lists of every theft and manipulation. Across the front, I wrote in bold letters, Family Financial Accounting. They would find it in the morning. Let the truth sit heavy in the place I had once called home. At 3 a.m., I eased my suitcase down the stairs, careful to avoid the creaky third step. Years of sneaking in after late shifts had taught me where the house betrayed footsteps. My heart pounded with every movement, but the snores from down the hall never broke. In the kitchen, the envelope waited under the glow of the nightlight. I set my keys beside it, the spare for my car, useless now, and the front door key that had once felt like belonging. Tonight it was only a symbol of captivity. Outside, the night air was cool and sharp, filling my lungs like courage. The driveway gaped empty, where my car had been its absence a physical ache, but also a reminder their control was already slipping. I dragged my suitcase to the curb and checked my phone. The Uber would arrive in 4 minutes. My driver's name was Patricia, middle-aged, a silver sedan, safe. When the headlights appeared at the corner, I allowed myself one last glance back at the house. The curtains were drawn, the walls silent, but inside lay the ghosts of every sacrifice they'd demanded. Patricia stepped out, helping me with the bag. She gave me a quick look, my tense shoulders, my red eyes, but didn't pry. "Long night?" she asked softly. I slid into the back seat, exhaling a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. "Long life." I said, my voice steadier than I felt, but it's finally getting better. The car pulled away from the curb. My childhood home shrank in the rearview mirror, then disappeared entirely. For the first time in 24 years, the road ahead was mine alone. Amelia's apartment smelled faintly of lavender and coffee. Her guest room wasn't big, just a twin bed, a nightstand, and clean sheets, but it felt like sanctuary. After weeks, months, years of tension, I finally slept for more than a handful of hours. When I woke, sunlight striped the walls through gauzy curtains. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then it all rushed back. The car, the dinner, the ultimatum, the suitcase by the curb at 3 a.m. Amelia knocked gently before poking her head in. "Coffee's ready. Want a cup before your shift?" Her voice was soft, careful, as though she were afraid I'd shatter. I wasn't sure yet that I wouldn't. At her kitchen table, I wrapped my hands around a steaming mug, letting the heat seep into me. My phone buzzed, relentlessly on the counter, dozens of missed calls, a waterfall of texts, but I ignored it. Instead, I opened my laptop. The night before, I had left an envelope on my parents' counter. That was for them. But this was for me. I opened a blank document and began typing. Family Financial Accounting, 2015-2025. The title alone made my stomach knot. It wasn't just a record. It was a confession of everything I had allowed, every theft I had survived. I started at 16, the first rent payment. $400 a month recorded neatly in my old checkbook. I flipped through the stack of handwritten receipts my father had signed over the years, each one proof I was more tenant than daughter. Line after line, I entered the numbers, $400, $400, $400. Over 6 years, it totaled nearly $25,000. Next, groceries. Bags of food I'd lugged home after double shifts. Receipts stacked in shoeboxes, proof I had fed a household that claimed to feed me. $8,000, maybe more. Then the bigger thefts, graduation money, $1,000 for deck repairs. Aunt Laura's Christmas gift, $300, vanished into Mom's safekeeping. Student loan refunds, $5,000 redirected to cover family expenses. Grandma's pearls stolen, though no dollar figure could ever measure that loss. And now the car, a used Toyota Corolla I had saved 2 years to buy, worth roughly $12,000, taken with forged paperwork. I added everything twice once in neat figures and again with receipts scanned into the file. Photos of documents, copies of bank statements, screenshots of emails, evidence layer upon layer until the weight of it pressed against my chest like a stone. When I finished, the total stared back at me, $43,000 siphoned away under the guise of family. The number pulsed in my vision, obscene. My hands shook as I scrolled through the pages. It wasn't just money. Each entry carried memories, the look on my father's face when he pocketed my scholarship, the dismissive shrug when I asked about missing gifts, the silence when my achievements went unnoticed. They hadn't simply drained my savings. They had drained me. Mary Amelia's voice broke through my thoughts. She had been watching from the counter, pretending to scroll her phone. "You okay?" I swallowed hard. "I'm making a record, so they can't twist it anymore." She came closer, resting a hand on my shoulder. "Good. Get it out of your head and onto paper. Then it's not just your word, it's truth." Her steadiness grounded me. I kept typing. By the time I was done, I had 27 pages. A meticulous record of theft disguised as parenting obligation dressed up as love. I printed 3 copies on Amelia's old inkjet printer. The whir and grind of the machine felt oddly ceremonial. 1 copy I slipped into my backpack, 1 I would keep digitally stored, and 1 I would leave behind. I slid the spare copy into a new envelope, labeling it in bold block letters for the Stokes family. The name looked strange to me now, as though I were already divorced from it. That evening, when Amelia offered to drive me past my parents' house, I hesitated. But something in me needed them to see what I had carried all these years. Not just feel my absence, but confront the proof of what they had done. The street was quiet when we pulled up. The house looked ordinary, curtains drawn, porch light flickering, but to me it was a vault of every betrayal. I stepped out of the car, envelope in hand. My legs trembled as I walked up the front steps, each creak of the wood echoing in my ears. The doormat still said, "Welcome, its edges frayed." I placed the envelope squarely on the kitchen counter through the unlocked back door, right where they would see it with morning coffee. The house smelled the same lemons and old carpet, but it no longer smelled like home. Back in Amelia's car, I pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes. "They'll find it in the morning." "What's inside?" she asked. "Everything," I whispered. "Every dollar, every lie. It's all in there. They can deny me, but they can't deny paper." She started the engine. "Good. Let them choke on it." As we pulled away, I turned in my seat, watching the windows shrink into darkness. For years, I had felt like the powerless one, the scapegoat, the afterthought, the source of endless obligation. But tonight, I had turned the tables. They thought they could erase me. Instead, I had written the record they could never erase. And this was only the beginning. The next morning, sunlight spilled through Amelia's curtains, soft and golden. For the first time in years, I woke without the weight of dread pressing on my chest. I padded into her kitchen, barefoot hair, mussed, still wrapped in borrowed pajamas. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, grounding me. "Morning warrior." Amelia teased, gently sliding a mug toward me. I smiled weakly. "Morning." But the peace shattered the moment I reached for my phone. The screen lit up with a storm, 27 missed calls, 43 texts, and 12 voicemails. My stomach lurched, but my hands didn't shake. Not this time. The first messages came from Dad. "You're being ridiculous. Come downstairs and apologize. Don't make this harder on your mother. She's stressed. Family obligations come first. Always have, always will." His tone was controlled at first, but quickly soured. "This is slander. You'll regret betraying us. No one will believe you over your own parents. You've lost your mind. Legal action against family. You're sick." The final message made me laugh out loud, bitter and sharp. "What will it take to make this go away? Name your price." Even now, he reduced love to a transaction. Mom's messages followed a different script. "How could you do this to us? Your father might lose his job if this gets out. Please come home. We can discuss this like adults. Think of Derek. His future is at stake." Her words were designed to wound, layered with guilt, wrapped in the language of sacrifice. But all I felt was a strange detachment, like watching an old movie I'd finally grown tired of. Derek's texts were more jumbled, uncertain. "Dad says you're making things up, but is it true they sold your car without asking? Mom's been crying nonstop. What did you even leave in that envelope? I don't know what to believe anymore." For the first time, his tone wasn't smug. It was confused, almost scared. Then came the extended family: cousins, uncles, distant relatives. My phone buzzed like a hive of bees. Your dad is furious, says you're spreading lies. What's going on, Jennifer here? Mom's crying. What did you do? Everyone's talking about some document? Mark called. Says there's been a misunderstanding. Can we talk? I scrolled, sipping coffee. My thumb hovered over the delete all button, but then a new message stopped me cold. Aunt Susan, Dad's sister, the one who had always smiled kindly at holidays but never interfered. Mary, what did you leave behind? Your father is apoplectic. Did you really document everything? Years of it. I had no idea this was happening. They're in complete panic mode here. I stared at the screen, stunned. She sounded not accusatory, not condemning, curious, shocked, almost protective. I typed back, fingers steady, I'm safe. Consulting with legal counsel. We'll contact you when I'm ready. Seconds later, her reply buzzed through. I'm glad you're safe. Your father is shouting on the porch, neighbors already complained. Your mother hasn't stopped crying since she found your documents. I'm in shock. Can we talk soon? I set the phone down, exhaling slowly. They found it, I told Amelia. The envelope. The dossier. She raised her eyebrows, and they're unraveling. Texts, voicemails, extended family gossip. My dad's screaming at the neighbors. My mom's drowning in tears. Derek's confused. Susan. I hesitated, the name tasting strange on my tongue. Susan might actually be on my side. Amelia whistled low. Nuclear detonation. Good. I let the silence stretch, the hum of the refrigerator filling the room. For years I had been the quiet one, the scapegoat. The girl who swallowed everything, so the family machine kept running smoothly. And now with one envelope I had broken the machine. The guilt tried to creep in. Maybe you went too far. Maybe you could have handled it differently. But then I remembered Derek's smirk at dinner. Dad's forged signature on my car title. Mom's sigh when she pocketed my scholarship. No, I hadn't gone too far. I had finally gone far enough. By mid-morning, the noise escalated. My phone buzzed, nonstop vibrating across the counter until Amelia finally snatched it up. You're not going to survive this if you keep staring at their chaos, she said firmly. Turn it off. I hesitated, thumb brushing the power button. The final message I read before shutting it down was from Derek. Dad's going ballistic over whatever you left. Mom's saying one thing, Dad another. Just tell me straight. Did they really take all that money from you? It wasn't an apology, not yet, but it was the first crack. I powered the phone off. The sudden silence was deafening, like stepping out of a storm. Amelia studied me. How does it feel? I thought about it. The fear was there, yes, the fear of retaliation, of being cut off forever. But beneath it, stronger than all of that, was relief. It feels like breathing, I said softly. That afternoon, we ran errands. Bought cheap groceries, toured the one-bedroom apartment Casey's cousin had mentioned. The walls were plain, the carpet thin, but when the manager handed me the lease, my signature flowed onto the page without hesitation. Later, back at Amelia's, I sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at the copy of my dossier I had kept. 27 pages, neat and damning, proof that I wasn't crazy, proof that I wasn't ungrateful, proof that I had always carried more than my share. My parents would never see it as truth. To them it would always be betrayal. But to me it was liberation. That night, as Amelia cooked pasta in the kitchen, I whispered into the quiet of her guest room as if my grandmother could hear me. They can't take from me anymore. For the first time I believed it. The lawyer's office smelled faintly of leather and old paper, the kind of place where words turned into weapons. I sat across from Judith Bennett, a woman in her late 40s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She wore no-nonsense navy, her hair pulled back into a bun so tight it could slice glass. Judith adjusted her glasses and flipped through the thick folder I had handed her, 27 pages of evidence, each stapled with care. She didn't rush. She skimmed, paused, scribbled notes with a pen that clicked loudly in the quiet office. My stomach churned with each page turn, half expecting her to laugh, to dismiss me, to confirm my parents' narrative. Ungrateful. Dramatic. Selfish. Instead, she set the file down and leaned back. Well, she said, her voice even, you've built quite the case. Relief surged so suddenly I almost wept. So I'm not crazy. Not in the slightest. Her lips curved into something like respect. What you've experienced is textbook financial exploitation. In fact, it's one of the most meticulously documented cases I've seen in years. You've kept receipts, records, signatures. That's rare. I swallowed hard. I wasn't documenting it on purpose. At first, I just wanted proof for taxes. Then, maybe part of me knew I'd need it someday. Judith nodded slowly. And now you do. She ticked points off on her fingers. The car sale fraudulent. Forged signature on a title transfer illegal, plain and simple. The rent payments legally murkier since you lived in the house, but still relevant to establishing a pattern. The scholarship money graduation funds missing GIF. They all build the narrative of control. In court, narrative matters. Her words landed heavy, sharp, undeniable. For the first time, the injustice I had carried felt visible to someone else. What happens now? I asked. Judith clasped her hands. Step 1. A formal demand letter. We'll request the return of the car's value and outline other funds owed. Step 2. Notify local authorities about the forged title. That puts pressure on them. Step 3. Prepare for civil action if necessary. The thought of dragging my parents into court made bile rise in my throat. Would it come to that? Most don't, she assured me. When faced with irrefutable evidence, people like your father tend to fold. Exposure is their greatest fear. My guess. Once he realizes you're serious, he'll try to settle quietly. Quietly. That word soothed and unsettled me all at once. My father quiet, hard to imagine. Judith tapped her pen on the folder. One more thing you need to protect yourself. Change passwords. Secure your accounts. If they had access before, assume they'll try again. I nodded, already done. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Good. You're ahead of the curve. Her certainty steadied me, but then she added something that made my blood run cold. By the way, I spoke briefly with a colleague in motor vehicles. Your father already tried to file a stolen car report yesterday. My breath caught. What? He claimed the car was his, that you had taken it without permission. Unfortunately for him, the forged signature gave him away. The officer flagged it immediately. If pressed, this could turn criminal. I pictured my father at the police station, blustering, insisting, maybe even yelling at the officer who dared question him. The image should have been satisfying, but it made my stomach twist. He wasn't just angry. He was desperate. Judith's eyes sharpened. This is where things turn dangerous. People like him don't back down gracefully. They escalate. Be prepared. The warning clung to me long after I left her office. Outside, the air felt sharper, fresher. I should have been terrified, but instead I felt steady. Judith's words echoed in my head. You've built quite the case. For years, I'd felt like the one who had to justify, defend, beg for recognition. Now, for the first time, I had the upper hand. Amelia met me at a cafe afterwards, sliding into the booth with her usual unfiltered energy. Well, what did she say? She said I have a case, I murmured, still tasting the words. A strong one. The car alone is fraud. The rest, it all adds up. She's drafting a demand letter. Amelia grinned, banging her fist lightly on the table. Hell yes. Finally, someone on your side who speaks legalese. I laughed, a sound that felt foreign and freeing at once. After lunch, we drove to Ridgeview Apartments to meet Casey's cousin. The building wasn't glamorous, peeling paint on the stair rails, kids' bikes chained near the mailboxes, but the unit itself was clean. A modest one-bedroom with beige carpet and a small balcony overlooking the street. It's not much, the manager said, apologetically jingling keys. But it's safe, and it's yours if you want it. No long waits, no intense credit checks. First month and security deposit. The apartment was unfurnished, just bare walls and hollow echo. Still, when I stepped inside, I felt something I hadn't in years' ownership. This space, plain as it was, would be mine. I'll take it, I said, surprising myself with how certain I sounded. The lease slid beneath my pen. My hand shook only slightly as I signed my name, reclaiming what had been stolen from me choice. As we left, Amelia nudged me. How's it feel? I looked back at the building, the balcony that would soon hold my plants, the door that would lock with my key alone. Like I just turned the tables, I said. And I meant it. The apartment was nothing more than beige walls and an empty echo. But when I turned the key in the lock for the first time, it felt like stepping into sunlight after years in a basement. The carpet smelled faintly of cleaning solution, the air carried a chill from the AC, and the fridge hummed with steady indifference. Plain, bare, mine. Amelia helped me carry in the essentials, 2 suitcases, a backpack, and a box she insisted on filling with groceries. She set the bag of pasta on the counter, then leaned against it with a grin. You realize you're officially a free woman, right? I laughed, the sound still strange on my lips. Free and broke. Broke is temporary. Free is permanent. Her words echoed as I unpacked. Each item placed felt like planting a flag, my nursing textbooks on the shelf, my grandmother's earrings in the drawer, the printed copy of my dossier in the desk. Artifacts of survival, proof that I wasn't leaving empty-handed. By evening, I collapsed onto the borrowed mattress. My phone buzzed relentlessly where it sat on the counter. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. The texts weren't from Dad this time. They were from Derek. Dad's going ballistic. Neighbors heard him yelling on the porch this morning. Said the cops even came after someone called a complaint. Mom won't stop crying. She keeps saying you betrayed us, but she won't answer my questions. Is it true? The rent receipts, the car title, the graduation money. Did they really take all that from you? I stared at the words, my pulse quickening. Derek, the golden child, the boy raised to believe the world bent to him, was asking questions. Not demanding, not mocking. Asking. I typed, erased, retyped. Finally, I sent yes. It's all true. Every dollar, every theft, every sacrifice. I can prove it. No response. For 10 minutes, my phone stayed silent. Then another message blinked across the screen. If that's real, then I never saw it. I never knew. I thought you wanted to help. Dad always said you did. The admission stung, though it wasn't surprising. Derek had been blind, but not by accident. Blindness was the role he'd been assigned, the one child showered with indulgence, while the other quietly carried the cost. I didn't reply. Some truths had to marinate before they could be swallowed. Later that night, Aunt Susan called. Her voice was taut with urgency. Your father was screaming at the neighbors this morning. Something about slander, betrayal. Everyone heard. Mary, the whole block knows. A thrill of fear and satisfaction twisted in me. My father's pride, once untouchable, was now unraveling in front of the people whose approval he valued most. Let them know, I said quietly. Susan's voice softened. Your dossier, it was a shock. None of us knew. We saw hints, but not the whole picture. Mary, I'm sorry. I should have noticed. You weren't supposed to, I murmured. They made sure of that. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance, fading quickly into silence. Inside the apartment hummed with the steady quiet of safety. For the first time, their chaos was contained on the other side of a wall I controlled. But the messages kept coming. Cousins, is it true? Did Uncle Frank really forge your car title? Family, friends. Your mom says you're unstable. What's happening? And Derek again at midnight. Dad says you're making it up, but his story keeps changing. First he said you signed willingly. Then he said he did it for you. Then he said you didn't care. Which is it? I didn't answer, but a grim smile tugged at my lips. The cracks were widening. My father's control was slipping. The next morning, I brewed coffee in a cheap French press Amelia had bought me. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, dust motes spinning like gold. I sipped slowly, savoring the bitter warmth. My life was still fragile, but it was mine. At noon, Amelia dropped by with more supplies, dishes, towels, a second-hand lamp. As we carried them in, a kid rode by on his bike, pointing at the building. That's the nurse who made her dad mad, he shouted to his friend, laughter trailing behind them. I froze, cheeks burning. Amelia caught my eye. Words spreading. Of course it was. Families loved gossip more than truth. My father's rage had spilled onto the porch, into the street, and now into the mouths of strangers. His iron control wasn't just cracking, it was collapsing publicly. That night, Derek sent another text. I applied for student loans today. Dad's furious. Says his credit will be ruined if I take them. Is that what you dealt with? Them trying to control your money too? I stared at the screen, a strange ache in my chest. My brother wasn't apologizing yet, but the ground beneath his golden pedestal was shifting. For the first time, he was questioning. I typed back slowly. Yes. They never wanted me independent. They wanted control. You'll see it too if you look closely enough. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Then finally, I don't know what to believe anymore. The words lingered on the screen, heavy as stone. Not trust, not apology, but doubt. And doubt was the first crack in a wall that had taken 24 years to build. As I set the phone down, I whispered into the quiet apartment more to myself than to anyone else. It's starting. And for once, the start wasn't theirs. It was mine. Judith called me on a Thursday afternoon, her tone brisk, but edged with quiet satisfaction. They've folded, she said. I nearly dropped my pen. Already. The evidence is overwhelming. Your father's attorney doesn't want this in court, especially not with the forged title hanging over his head. They're willing to settle for $38,000. 38. Not the full 43 I'd calculated, but more than I dared hope. and the car filed under fraudulent sale. You'll get the money back plus additional compensation. No criminal charges for now unless they push. My guess, they won't. I exhaled slowly, the knot in my chest loosening for the first time in weeks. My parents had spent years siphoning my earnings, my independence, my milestones, and now finally they were paying back. Not voluntarily, but by force. Judith's voice softened. Mary, this is a victory. Don't let the numbers blind you. You won. I hung up and sat in my bare living room, the settlement ringing in my ears. I should have been elated, but what I felt most was hollow. Money could fix the losses on paper. It couldn't restore birthdays, stolen memories, tainted milestones overshadowed. Still, it was justice in its way. That night Derek called, not texted, called. I let it ring twice before answering. His voice was tentative, stripped of its usual swagger. Mary. Yeah. A pause. I read through the stuff you left. Aunt Susan showed me. The receipts, the rent payments, the car title, all of it. I closed my eyes, and another pause longer this time. I didn't know. I swear I didn't. Dad always said you were happy to help, that you volunteered. I believed him. God, I was so stupid. The words cracked something in me. For years, Derek had been the golden child, the boy for whom the world bent, and yet now his voice sounded small, human. You weren't stupid, I said finally. You were protected. That's what golden children get. Protection. At someone else's expense. He sucked in a shaky breath. I'm sorry, I can't undo it, but I'm sorry. For the jokes, for the entitlement, for not seeing. I wanted to tell him sorry wasn't enough, that apologies couldn't repay what had been taken, but instead I said thank you. That's a start. Another silence stretched, softer this time. So you're really done with them, he asked. I'm done letting them take from me, I corrected. That doesn't have to mean I'm done with you. When we hung up, my chest felt both heavier and lighter, as if grief and relief had tangled into one. 2 days later, Susan invited me to dinner. A neutral restaurant, no parents. Just her, Derek, and me. I almost didn't go, but something in me needed to know if bridges could be rebuilt not with my parents, but with the people around them. The restaurant was quiet, low light, glinting off polished wood. Susan greeted me with a hug that lingered, the kind of embrace that said more than words. Derek sat across from me, fidgeting with the edge of his menu. I wanted to see you both, Susan began, her voice steady but warm. Without Frank. Without Linda. Just us. I nodded, wary. Derek spoke first, blurting it out like he couldn't hold it anymore. I never saw it. How differently they treated us. How much they took from you while giving me everything. I thought it was normal. That's how families like ours work, I said quietly. Roles get assigned. You were the golden child. I was the scapegoat. Neither of us got to choose. His eyes flickered with shame. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know, my voice cracked just a little, but you did. Susan reached across the table, her hand warm on mine. Your grandmother saw it too, Mary. She tried to intervene before she passed. That's why she left certain things directly to you in her will. She wanted you to have something they couldn't take. I thought of the pearl necklace, the earrings I had hidden away. A lump rose in my throat. Most of it disappeared anyway. Susan's expression hardened. I've spoken to your mother. The jewelry should be returned. For a moment, hope flared, fragile but real. Dinner stretched into 2 hours conversation, meandering from painful truths to tentative laughter. Derek admitted he was starting community college instead of state saving money until loans cleared. Honestly, might be better this way, he said with a sheepish grin. I actually have to grow up. I smiled faintly. Welcome to reality. When we left, Susan hugged me again. You're not alone, Mary. Not anymore. Some patterns are breaking. Slowly, but breaking. Her words clung to me as I walked back to my car, my new car bought with my own settlement money. The night air was cool, the sky wide and dark. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just surviving. I was rebuilding. The next morning, an envelope arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside, folded neatly, was my grandmother's pearl necklace. No note, no explanation, just silent restitution. I held the pearls in my palm, their smoothness warm against my skin. Tears blurred my vision. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't enough, but it was something. As I clasped them around my neck, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I didn't see the girl who had once begged for recognition, who had bent beneath their weight. I saw someone else. Someone free. 1 year ago, I sat in a hospital supply closet on my 24th birthday staring at a text that told me my car had been sold without my consent. That day, my parents demanded I sacrifice my future to fund Derek's. That day, the last illusion cracked. Today, I am sitting on the balcony of my own apartment, sunlight warming my face, coffee steaming in my mug. The pearls around my neck catch the light, my grandmother's returned in silence, but no less powerful. I trace them with my fingers and think of her words, whispered once when I was a teenager, overwhelmed by endless responsibility. Always know your worth. It took me years to understand, but I do now. The past 12 months have been a study in contrast. My parents sold the family house, downsizing to a modest bungalow after whispers about forged signatures and police visits spread through the neighborhood. According to Susan, they keep to themselves their pride wounded, but still intact enough to prevent apology. My father tells relatives I betrayed them for attention. My mother cycles between illness guilt and quiet bitterness. Their voices still reach me sometimes, filtered through cousins, old family friends, but I no longer absorb them. They are background noise. Derek, though, is different. He started community college last fall loans. In his own name, a part-time job at a tech store to cover extras. Weird, he texted me once having to budget. I used to just ask Dad. Another time he called after catching Dad trying to access his bank account. Guess it wasn't just you, he admitted. I get it now. We meet once a week for coffee. At first, the conversations were tentative, like stepping across a cracked bridge. But over time, something new has formed a sibling bond, not built on resentment, but on recognition. He doesn't apologize every time we talk. He doesn't need to. His actions, working, saving, growing up, speak enough. Susan has become my anchor. She calls me on Sundays, invites me to dinners with her family, and last Christmas tucked a handwritten note into my stocking. Your grandmother would be proud. We all should have seen sooner. It wasn't the family I expected, but it was the one I needed. My chosen family at the hospital has carried me through too. Amelia and Casey decorated my first apartment with thrift store finds and houseplants. The pediatric ward celebrated my promotion with balloons, and a card signed by every nurse. To Mary, Amelia toasted at our last brunch, who finally realized her worth isn't determined by those who try to diminish it. Career-wise, I am thriving. The hospital offered me a permanent charge nurse role with whispers of management training on the horizon. With the settlement money, I bought another used car, different model, different color, a symbol that independence couldn't be erased with forged paperwork. I opened a savings account in my name only, and each deposit feels like reclaiming another piece of myself. But the greatest shift has been internal. I used to wake with a knot in my stomach, bracing for the next demand, the next guilt trip, the next sacrifice. Now I wake with quiet, with choice, with the knowledge that my boundaries hold. Do I miss them sometimes? The idea of them, at least. The fantasy of parents who celebrated my milestones, who protected rather than exploited. But grief doesn't mean regret. I grieve the family I wished for. I do not regret leaving the family I had. Last week, Susan arranged a small gathering. Just her, Derek, and a few cousins who had quietly reached out after the dust settled. No parents, no threats, just laughter, food, and warmth. As I looked around the table, I realized something family isn't about obligation. It's about choice. It's about the people who respect your boundaries, celebrate your joy, and love you without invoice. The settlement check is long cash, the accounts balanced. But the real wealth is here in freedom, in chosen family, in the unshakable knowledge of my worth. I look straight into the camera now, my story complete, and speak to whoever needs to hear it. Financial abuse within families often goes unrecognized because it hides behind words like obligation and loyalty. But love doesn't take. Love doesn't exploit. Love doesn't come with invoices attached. If my story sounds familiar, please hear me. You deserve better. You deserve respect, safety, and a life where your milestones matter. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say no more and walk away. Not because you don't love them, but because you finally love yourself enough to stop being used. I built the family I deserved, and you can too. I touched the pearls once more, feeling their cool weight against my skin. My grandmother's voice seems to echo through them, firm and certain. Always know your worth. This time I do.